Welcome to Open Mic for September. I cannot believe we're already in September. Time flies when you're having fun, sometimes a little bit too quick. But I hope everybody's doing well. We've got a jam-packed session today, so I'm not going to talk for too long. I'm going to throw things over to Jake to kick off with some updates.
So hello everyone, welcome again to Open Mic. Happy Friday. The weather's very beautiful in Melbourne, as it is in Sydney here as well. So to kick it off, I'll share my screen. I'll firstly go through the product update. So I'll share my screen. So the first thing I'll talk about here is we have got a new Rewst action, and this is for linking Microsoft CSP customers. So essentially, it's going to be utilized to essentially automate the customer mappings. So instead of doing it the GDAP side of things, you can come and use a workflow action to automate that component. Now, the other second thing I wanted to discuss is this is going to actually be coming supposedly at the end of this month. We should have the dates somewhere, but at the end of this month, the RoboRewsty is going to be coming into the platform in beta. I believe it's going to be sort of a signed up rollout. So if you were interested in receiving access to this, there'll be a beta access link which we can provide to you. But essentially, in this demonstration here, you can see I have a workflow. So essentially, this runs as if it was you, right? So it's running off an MCP server, so Model Context Protocol. It's sort of a standardized way for a model to access APIs. So you can think of this essentially as a USB-C connecting LLMs and services, right? It allows data transfer. And we use currently Anthropic for our backend, but we are changing it to an AWS Bedrock model shortly, right? But in this workflow, essentially, because it essentially acts as you, so it has your context. You can see I've asked it, what are the actions doing within this workflow? It's then analyzed and read the workflow and then returned what these actions are doing throughout the workflow. Now, what it's also going to be able to do is auto document, right? So I did prior to this session, ask for the RoboRewsty to document these action points. And you can see here in the box below, it's probably a bit zoomed out. I'll zoom in. But you can see here, it created essentially a notes, which I've just brought down, just to be more transparent here. And you can see it's actually described what the actions are doing, right? So I've got one from here. I've also got one for here. And it's just describing what the actions are doing in this workflow. And down the line in Q4, we are again going to be iterating a more advanced setup of RoboRewsty where you are going to be able to prompt it and for it to be able to build you out the workflows. And the good thing is, since it's running as if it was you, in an area like if an execution has failed, you can prompt it and ask it to then do a trace on where exactly the failure was, as well as what the possible solution is to fix it. It didn't actually work in this instance, but that is coming as well. Cool. So in marketplace updates, one of our new crates that we have released is the refactor of the last logged in user into the PSA. This is developed for, I believe, Autotask. Yep, Autotask. So if you're an Autotask user as a PSA, we have a new crate to assign a configuration contact based on a last user logged in. A few bug fixes that have happened as well. So we have updated the on-prem and Azure V2 crate. So we can add a graph action to retrieve the user's current settings, as well as modify the usage location field to be set with the user's current usage location value. We have also made some updates on the billing count reports. We fixed the data RMM filtering mechanism for more accuracy, as well as the Microsoft user onboarding. We standardized a ticket list output and naming in the ConnectWise mapping. As well, in the onboarding, we've added some modification. We've modified the automation log and success data aliases, also to provide a label of custom transitions and on-send password to supervisor action, as well as updated the automation log to rename actions and added success data aliases. Now, what's coming soon? We do have a BitLocker activation crate series coming, as well as workstation offboarding and enhanced logging for the user onboarding workflow. Cool. Now, in dev updates, we have actually updated our GPT model on the back end for the OpenAI integration. Now we're utilizing GPT-5 instead of GPT-4 Mini. So that will essentially give you the better model. So you can use that now. And the Hudo integration has had the icon updated. We have also updated the sign-in with Entra to sign in now using a Microsoft on the login page as well. And with the bug fixes and chores, we have fixed some errors with this variable action here, as well as we have fixed ConnectWise PSA service, so the survey data, the reveal issue, right? So if you were having these issues previously, we have now fixed them. And then also what's coming soon, again, we've got the DropSuite integration. We have BVoIP, Leader, and hourly dashboard updates. Now, the last thing I'll touch on with education. So the two main things that have come, we have released 2 new courses. The first one is troubleshooting within Rewst. So this will actually give a deep dive on how to sort of troubleshoot within Rewst. What are the best methods to go about tracing the error and then going about fixing them, right? So this has been a new course that we have released. And we also have released a course on ROI with Rewst. So you can review this course and then get some knowledge on how to get a quick ROI with Rewst with an audit inactive device workflow. Cool. So that concludes my section. I'm going to stop sharing my screen now. There we go. Cool.
Thank you, Jake, as always. And if anyone has any questions on anything Jake raised, feel free just to reach out via Discord or via the chat. Team's always happy to help. And to kick off demos, we have Ben. Are you around, Ben Marshall? I thought I seen you.
Yeah, I'm here. How you going?
Good, how are you?
Not too bad. So this week, last month, I kind of presented something quickly along the lines that generated a sort of failure email that kind of said, hey, look, this when something fails, this is the detail. Further on from that, one of the things we're trying to do is encourage our team to be excited about the changes in Rewst and kind of get them behind what's happening each week. So to achieve that end, I've created a weekly change digest, which is pretty straightforward in what it does. What I'll do is I'll just quickly send it off now. It will actually go through all the workflows that currently exist in Rewst. It then splits them out into 2 different groups. It says, okay, anything that's had an update in the last 7 days that wasn't created in the last 7 days, and everything that's had an update in 7 days and was created in the last 7 days, splits them out into subgroups here. So just, takes the results, splits them out using these 2 sub workflows, does the 4 items. And for each 4 item, it then goes through into a subtask and basically says, if it's something that's new and fresh, we'll pass through, get the details of the workflow, including all the tasks, and then do an AI prompt that basically says, tell me what this workflow is doing in 2 or 3 prompts or less, which hopefully I could eventually use RoboRewsty for, and then outputs that as a nice little JSON file. Does the same thing for updates. So it goes through, checks everything for the last week, any updates, tries to identify what those changes are, and creates a user-friendly way of saying, yes, this is what the changes are and this is how it's done. Runs through all that. Once it's all done, puts it all together in a single email file and then sends it off and actually just creates a nice little table for the end users to say, this is what's changed this week and this is what's has been created. Prime example would be not that guy. Let me see if I can find the one from last week because this one's taking a little bit long to generate for me. But it just generates a nice email like this that creates an email, gives us the date as well as the name and direct links as well as who made the changes, breaks down the summary of, again, what they've done. It's AI generated, so sometimes it's better or worse, still working on the modeling there, but then also goes through and says, look, there's the workflows that have been updated and the changes that have occurred and how many times they've been touched in the workflow as well. Added some quick exits, so if there's someone who's just moved the thing and hit save, then it will just say, yep, cosmetic only change. So it's just going through all the logic and reviewing all the changes in the previous versions and trying to highlight what explicitly is changed, but also removing some, personal data that may not be nice to go to everyone. But yeah, it's just a nice little simple workflow that has really made communication of changes within Rewst easy. I've got a flag in there that excludes anything that's been updated on the Rewst end. So if it's a synced workflow that's gone through, it doesn't include those. Here's the one that's actually generated today. But if it is something that is, not yet, so if it's synced workflow, then if it is something that is synced, I can just sit there and say, yes, give me the sync changes from Rewst's perspective as well. So I can kind of change depending on what I want to communicate. It was more about getting the team used to the idea of what's happening, what's changing, and if something's being introduced that they're not aware of, they can then be aware and kind of respond to it as expected. So yeah, that's a nice little easy one.
Nice, thank you. Did anyone have any questions for Ben before we move on? Good. Right, cool. Drop them in the chat if you have any others. Next, we're going to move on to Ryan Brooks from Idea 11. I'm sure I've seen you in here as well.
Might be on mute there. Right.
Yeah.
There we go. Thank you, team.
Gotcha.
Awesome. So one of the 50 hats I hold within Idea 11 is security compliance. And being ISO certified company, it's actually a little bit on the serious side. So we used to have a process internally where our engineers used to get vulnerability reports from our internal defender and would let everyone know and send things out to, hey, please go patch these things. Because I, like most of you, work in pretty engineering heavy company, which means people can install things and do things and all of that on their device. So I think at track, we were tracking something like 800 individual applications deployed across our fleet. So what we wanted to do is, because we have Defender pretty much deployed out everywhere, using the information that we can get from that to try and automate this process of letting people know that updates is a bit of a shared responsibility and not done for internal, because we do have a lot of BYD users and that kind of stuff as well. So I went to go build that. And of course, the first hurdle I ran into is Rewst at the moment doesn't really have any integration with the Defender for Endpoint API, which is conveniently not a part of the Graph API. And also, Microsoft in no way publishes any type of Swagger or Open API documentation for that. So I built my own. So what I did, and this is on GitHub, so anyone can go grab it if they want. I basically told and trained an AI to read all of the Microsoft documentation. It's something like 800 pages or something like that, that contain all the individual pages for the API endpoints for all of this, and asked it to go create me the actual Open API spec. Conveniently, it also imports with no errors. So that's amazing. Don't have to fix anything like that. But yeah, so that's all AI generated sort of 11,000 lines of API spec. There's about, I can't remember how many actions actually. How many do I actually say in here? Can't remember, but there's a few. So it's all there. So if you want to actually use this, I'll shove this in the chat, but I also have instructions on how to import that into Rewst and use that too. So then that gives us a set of all the actions for what you can do inside the Defender for Endpoint API. So I do hope someone at Rewst actually just steals my thing and makes it official integration so I don't have to look after it. So what we basically do, and this is the quirk with the Defender data, is there is no just one API for, can you please give me the vulnerabilities for this thing? And mainly because we wanted to also personalize this to the person. Defender has the concept of what's called security recommendations, which are a bit more human readable. Hey, please update this thing versus just here's a big bunch of CVE numbers. But we also wanted to use the CVE numbers to be able to prioritize and risk rank within the notification to the user. So this is pretty simple. We essentially just get all Graph users that are registered and members and not guests and all of that. We also then just do a full dump of get me all the machines. So we're getting machines and registered devices from Graph, but also from Defender, because you have to link them together. We then get all the Defender recommendations, and then we get all the vulnerabilities by machine, which is the CVE vulnerabilities by machine. That process takes a little while. We then come in and process this data. It's pretty simple, but it's essentially just taking the items, matching it against devices that actually are in Defender, because not all devices in Graph are in Defender, and then takes all the vulnerabilities, and we kind of create out this tree with all of that data. This process here takes a while. This entire workflow for about 100 and something machines takes about 15 minutes to start processing through all of this data. I have tried doing it concurrently and sequentially, and it actually makes absolutely no difference. It seems I might be hitting something on the Rewst backend for that, but it takes a little while. And so we get all of that data. We then group all the devices by the user just to get it into a bit more of a easy process. We then filter out anything that doesn't have recommendations. Now, the reason why I'm not doing filtering a bit higher, a lot of these endpoints actually don't support filtering in any way. But also we wanted to build this out as a core data set. So if we did want to, let's say, instead of just doing notifications for like the once a week that we're doing, but we want to do like a critical that we run every day or that, we wanted to have all of this information so we could sort of spin it out to other things. Then we create an email where we essentially take, where is my message? There we go. So we generate out HTML email, which I'll show at the moment, but it's sort of a nice pretty email with all the details. We also construct a CSV that goes along with that email as well. So it basically takes more of the raw data from that Defender, constructs it into a CSV as a base64 object, and then we can pass that in as an attachment. And then if we run all of that, I had to blur some stuff out, but essentially this is sort of what the email looks like. So you get a bit of a thing. These updates and everything are prioritized in order. So whether they're critical or they're publicly exploitable sort of pushes it to the top. But then it also does count like what's high, medium, and that, and CVS scores, and kind of tries to rank it around that. Pushes all that through. We give some instructions in terms of, and these are contextual too. So like if they don't have any critical updates, it doesn't show them the first sentence. We also include a couple of email links. And so for example, this, if you need installing updates, if you click this link, it actually populates the email with all of the updates that were required, so they can pick which ones they need help with. We've also put in a bit here for people if they got devices that are maybe getting picked up that they're not using anymore. Same sort of generated email for that. We also hilariously, because we have quite a high security culture internally, everything I send out or a system sends out, everyone thinks it's a phishing test. So we, because we do have some internal phishing like simulations that fake being security emails. So we've also put down this, so it pulls out the automation ID so people can actually validate and see if it's genuine. And that's it.
Beautiful. Thank you. Love that. And thank you so much for jumping on and sharing that with the community. Did anyone have any questions at all? Wrong one, Scarlett? Yeah.
Yeah, wrong one.
All right, cool. Let's jump across to
I do have a quick
Josh.
one, if possible.
Oh, yeah,
Sorry.
go ahead on.
How difficult was it to message the AI to read the Microsoft Docs and generate the OpenAI spec?
Yeah. So the tool that I used is the Amazon Q CLI. We're a big AWS house, so just using one of them, but it's one you can just run on your laptop. It wasn't too difficult. Mainly the bigger problem was, and if you actually have a look at the Git history, you'll see I did kind of a big update. My first kind of pass of it did like create endpoints that didn't exist and stuff like that in the first part. And while it wasn't super inaccurate, like it was just very close, but not close enough to obviously work. So essentially what I had to do, and I actually do have like in the repo now, there's some like more instructions in terms of, hey, you know, don't be an idiot. It essentially, what I did was put it through a process where it would generate an endpoint. And the way I did that was Microsoft shares all of their documentation as Markdown in GitHub. So I essentially pulled down that whole directory for that and used that as my reference. So it's not reading the website or anything like that. So I would mainly tell it to go, hey, you need to go look at this one thing, look at it in context, but you are building an open API spec, so it does need to care about like the schemas and the responses and build that out. And they're obviously in like different spots in the document, right? Every time it needs to update it. But it was mainly trying to keep it in line with, once you've done it, check your work. So it would go through a process of create the endpoint, update the different things, go read the documentation again, and actually check that the endpoint that you've created is real and fits the thing, and have it self-validate kind of into a loop. The other sort of thing, because you can sort of start running into like context window problems, because if you were to just import like all of that documentation into the context window, it would run it out. Sort of doesn't really matter what model you would use. So making sure that it was kind of just doing one endpoint at a time and getting it, finishing it, only caring about that. The lucky thing I think you've got with probably partially that documentation, but just also how like API specs work, is they do start commonly referencing stuff. So like the response schema is commonly used across different endpoints because of just the object that it responds with. So it starts to build it out, but essentially towards the end, like the way Amazon QCLI works, it'll kind of ask you for permission every time it like writes to the file. I got over that after about like the 100th time it's asked me. So I just hit T, which is trust mode, which just says go nuts, and just let it go. And so it was a lot more accurate the sort of second time I built it. I haven't run into now like any actual AI like problems with any of the endpoints after I've gone through that part. I also haven't tested all of them, so that's why my GitHub repo had plastered all over it. This is AI generated, do whatever you feel necessary. But yeah, it didn't get it right the first time. And then you run into the real big problem of, well, you can't update custom integrations by re-importing the Open API spec.
You got to
And
find the
so
endpoint and edit it every time. Yeah.
Yeah. So when you're trying to then do that with like I can't remember. It's like nearly 100 something endpoints, if not more. That's a bit painful. So I was kind of just blowing it away and starting again, multiple times, until it was fine. The actual other sort of bigger problem I ran into, because you could obviously do this without a custom integration, and that would work fine, and just do the calls that you need to do. The biggest other problem I ran into with the custom integration is the OAuth timeout. So Rewst doesn't seem to respect like the short-lived token timeout a little bit with the OAuth refreshes. So what would happen, especially with the way Microsoft works with the graph, like permissions, is once it goes off and grabs that token that's valid for like 24 hours, if you haven't remembered to assign a specific role or something to that app registration, you're stuck with that for the next 24 hours. And the only way to get around that is you have to delete the whole custom integration to force everything to refresh out. So that was fun as well. Hilariously, the Microsoft Cloud integration has that problem too, if you've ever had to add extra permissions to that. So yeah, other than that, yeah, the AI thing works better than building it manually, but buyer beware.
Yeah, it's coded. Thanks.
Thank you. Anyone else? Questions wise? Otherwise, we will jump across to Josh from Blackbird.
I don't know how I'm supposed to follow that.
Good luck with that, Josh.
I know. Thanks. Oh, hi, Tim. How you going?
You're stuck with me for another week.
Oh, only a week. That's disappointing. Okay. I hope I'm sharing the right screen. So one of the things I've been working on recently is I've had a couple of clients who needed to do some very minor data moves inside SharePoint and OneDrive, and some of the free tools that used to be very, very good, such as Mover, have been hobbled to an extent. And I also wanted to extend upon some of those tools to have actions logged in our PSA, and also to capture those time savings that we get by running Rewst workflows. So I have built a form with a series of opt-gen workflows and an underlying workflow that will go and query all of your sites in Microsoft 365. So it'll get SharePoint, it'll get Teams, it'll get OneDrive. Then the fun part was just trying to get the folders out of the document libraries that you want. So that's what the depth indicator is about. We get a list of our document libraries. So in this particular site's case, there's only the shared documents one. But based on the value that we specify in the depth field, we get a list of folders in the source site, and you can pick what you're looking for. The destination is largely the same process. It's the same option generators, but in the destination field as a default, I take an extra folder structure level down, and then you specify the target directory and your target list and your target directory. So in this case, our target location has got 3 document libraries that we can choose from, and then you can pick the folder as well. I have the option to change the folder name, so it can just be a straight copy as it is in the source location. We can give it a custom name, which the form should hopefully dynamically update. No, demigods don't like me today. Or if you use the metadata, another dropdown should appear, and then you can pick the columns from the source SharePoint location in the order you wish them to be displayed, and that is the name that will be used on the other side. What happens when this process is run is that we get a ticket created in our PSA I've been very lazy and just used the ConnectWise actions directly rather than the generic PSA workflows that Rewst provide, and I'm going to pay for that when I eventually do move from ConnectWise, but I'm going to cross that bridge then. And the idea here is that our customers that are using a client portal will be able to see the ticket created and see the comments added to the job every time the workflow goes back and does a check to see if the job's finished, to then give the customer the all clear that they can go and check what's going on. So the workflow itself that actually does the copy is fairly straightforward. We start by getting the company information out of the PSA. We get some source and destination folder information, get the custom fields if that's so they can be used if that option is selected on the form to use them as the part of the name of the copied folder. Create a ticket if required, or update a ticket if one's already there, and to start the copy job. The good thing about this is it moves the copy job off of someone's machine or their browser session and just lets it run in the background. So for one client in particular that was trying to use a OneDrive location as an archive for some data that a staff member was working on, a few gigs of data, it would take a fair chunk of time to run, and every time my computer went to sleep, the job would fail for a reason that didn't quite make sense, because in theory SharePoint UI should be doing the same thing. That's what this is doing. So as after the copy is started, we go and query whether the job is completed or not. If it's not, we wait for 3 minutes, we go back and we check again. If it is completed, we will add the notes to the ticket and update the internal notes, and then we will send an email to the person that started the form. That's not working at the moment, but the intention is that's the final notification piece to our person that runs the form. And if there is a failure of any description, we log that in the ticket, and we send a message off to our team's endpoint to notify me that there is something wrong, so that I can attempt to be proactive to resolve it and rerun the job before our client has to contact our service delivery team to ask what's going on. So fairly simple. There's a couple of things to do to improve it. If a folder is too big, the job just fails. So I need to capture that and then try and break that folder into smaller chunks to eventually get to the point that everything can move according to what the form executor has requested, and getting that email to fire at the end when it's completed is it. And then when that's done, the long-term plan is that will feed into the client portal that we're building as a value add tool that they can use to shunt small bits of data around if they need to. So that's all I've got. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any questions for Josh? Shoot away. Yeah, if anything comes to mind, be sure to pop it in the chat. We're going to jump across to Ray when you're ready, Ray.
Good afternoon, everyone. Okay, so what I went and created and what I want to show off is how you can use GraphQL to retrieve data in forms. One of the big things we all know is when we're waiting for an opgen to run or load, it can just sit here and spin for a while because it is running off and grabbing the data on the background. So basically that's going to spin, but I can go to this version where I've said use GraphQL, and all I'm doing is I'm asking Rewst to go and get the previous result, and it's already back, right? The first one's is still spinning because it's got a fair bit of data to do, go and get. I also wanted to use it in a much more complicated thing. So if I run this side by side where I'm trying to grab the mailbox information and wait for it to go and get it, technically, because of the way that Microsoft Exchange EXO commands run, they run fairly long, as we all know. So I think if I do it normally, it's taking about 44 seconds. When I'm using Graph, it's taking 7 seconds to bring back the same data. And while I was here, I might as well show off what you can actually do with one drop down and the amount of data you can bring back from that drop down. This isn't a great example of that. So here's a better one. By choosing one user, grabbing one drop down field, you can actually embed pretty much a whole JSON object into your value that you get back, as long as you stringify it, which means that I've seen forms where people are doing form after form after form to pull out all the data they need to just pre-fill bits and pieces or other drop-downs. If you stringify it and then pull it back, you can have one drop-down fill out another 10 or 12 or 15 drop-downs for you, and it just speeds up the workflow dramatically. In terms of how I've actually done all this, so if we go to the workflow, it's actually fairly simple. All I'm doing is getting Exchange Online, get mailbox actions to list the Exchange users. And then for the helver, I wrote an anonymizer. So is this an open mic? Yes. So all the email addresses, GUIDs, all of these have been modified. So none of them reflect what my actual information is here. Because, hey, it's something that makes our lives easier when we're presenting if we don't have to worry that when I click a button, I'm not going to reveal anything sensitive. So back to the actual workflow itself, not that one, we'll go to the simple one first. Am I using GraphQL? Yes. All we're going to do, we're querying workflow executions. We're querying where the organization ID and workflow ID based on these two fields. So it's just going to go back into Rewst and look for the last successful execution based on what I'm doing here. So I'm going, yeah, cool. I want where it's this organization, this workflow, and then I grab out all the standard details I need: ID, created at, updated at, and status. Then on my transition, all I'm doing, I'm checking for any successes that run. If there are no successes, I want it to go and run the original workflow. So that way it will always return the data. If there is a success, great, get the last result ID. And then from here, I can go back and query workflow execution context, add in my result ID, and go and download the full context with all the data that I had previously. And I'm just doing a result.result -1 to get the last item in my set, and then doing it again so it gets the value of Exchange users. So it's just querying the last context I ran, the last item that it found, and then adding .exchange users to the end to pull the data back. But then you can start getting really advanced with this stuff, where here I'm doing the same sort of thing, but I'm checking for AAD premium, yes or no, listing Microsoft users, listing Exchange users, and that's how I'm starting to bring out all these field values and everything else. In terms of how this looks in the form layout, and I'll be sharing the form after this, it's fairly simple. I've got the mailbox stats drop-down field here, and then all I am literally doing is querying this field and going, great, can I get ctext.stats.value, pipe it to JSON, grab display name or aliases or whatever you need. And then that will just grab all that data that I mentioned earlier and show it to your end users in the form window itself. Now you can take everything that I've done here and apply that to our platform as well. So sometimes you might not need to actually write all your data to a database. You could just actually query the last result yourself using GraphQL and then grab the data. It depends on the data, how often you need it to refresh, all of that sort of thing. If it's once a day, you could run a cron job. That way, at least you've got one query that's sitting there. and then if it's just list users, yep, go and grab it. Most of the time, if I'm making a workflow like this, though, anytime someone goes to get the data from the cron job or from the previous result, I actually trigger a webhook to go and get a new version. So if I'm looking through the data and it's not there, I can just go back to the form, I can hit refresh, and then, hey presto, it's got the updated list because it was already doing the query in the background while the user's sitting here. Does anyone have any questions on anything I've shown off? I know I showed off 3 different things sort of all in one hit, but I thought I might as well make it worthwhile for you. No, awesome.
Good. Thanks so much, Ray, for sharing that with us all. Does anyone have any other questions? We've got some time for a bit of a Q&A, or did anyone else want to jump in, share something, ask questions? You stuck anywhere? Need some advice, some feedback? Don't all jump at once.
I can jump then. I'm wondering, are there any other Kiwis on here? Or is it just, am I the only one? Because I'm wondering, this might be a specific New Zealand problem, but we've been trying to develop a client portal, and the first and most immediate feedback that we've had from clients is that it's very slow. And I'm wondering if that's a closeness to a data center issue, or if it's an app platform problem, or what the story is there. So I was wondering if anybody else had any experience with clients using app platform for a client portal thing, and if they've had performance issues with it.
I use app platform a lot, and if you're looking at performance issues with regards to so are your performance issues where you've got inline Ginger, say in like HTML blocks, or if you've got workflows running linked to forms, what specifically?
So the particular, so when it's running a workflow and getting data back, I can explain that, and I'm happy to tell them that it's just suck eggs, that's how long it takes. But it's when it's clicking on buttons, loading pages, that feels slow. So like when it pops up and says, running workflow, getting data from table, that is slow as well. And I've complained a couple of times on Discord about getting what looks like timeouts in that when I'm building the apps. But once they're sort of up and running, it seems to be okay. But it's generally it's loading the pages. So I've gone as far as to almost create a React front end so that you click a button, it instantly loads the stuff using JavaScript, and then it reloads the page as an iframe for just the form.
Yeah, as iframes. Yeah.
Yeah, which helped a lot, and people were like, yeah, that's way faster, but it's not ideal. But because we've noticed it in general, I'm just wondering if it's because we're so far away from the data center or not.
No, it's because of the requirement for Rewst backend to go and get data if you're requesting it. One thing you can do that I've done in the past is have as many workflows as possible on schedules, populating organization variables with the data sets that you might need to get. For example, if you need to go and get like a user list or something, or a form list, I populate that into a organization variable, stringified JSON, and then I have a workflow, single task. It doesn't even, only just a single task. Just grabs the org variable and punches it into the workflow. So you're not actually having to rely on an API to go and get that information on the fly. You've cached it essentially, and then that increases the performance significantly. I
have actually had a little bit of success doing what Jay has just showed off, basically using GraphQL to get the most recent run as well. That's been quite helpful.
Yeah, so you can, depending on what the context of the user is, you can pass the JWT token that is generated from the user's auth context when they log into App Platform, you can do a QL call directly to Rewst. You don't even have to use a
just do it in browser rather than via
in JavaScript.
the workflow.
Yep, you can just use JavaScript directly in HTML template.
That's probably outside of my ability. I might have to see if I can vibe code that.
What I
AI
will
will help you with that one, mate.
If you're using GraphQL the way I was doing it, though, make sure your context is as small as possible. So if you've got a lot of data to process or that, move all that to sub-workflows. Just surface the result you want at the end right up the top. The smaller the context, the quicker it comes back, no matter what.
Yeah. Cool.
Beautiful.
Some things you just won't be able to get around though. For us, we've built a backend database in Azure, and we're having Rewst feed the database, and we're going direct to our database with a lot of things within that platform. So it depends on what your use case is.
I've managed to get away with Azure tables for some of that stuff and all variables for others, but we are getting to the point where I might need to spin up a database, but thankfully not yet.
You might need to bite the bullet.
Yeah, unfortunately, I just don't want to be a DBA. Anyway.
Cheers. Thanks, guys. Anyone else want to jump in? Any questions? Any feedback? Anything you'd like to see on the next call for October?
RoboRewsty actually making a workflow.
Noted. All right,
I
guys.
just popped in a survey in the chat, so feel free to fill that one out. If there's anything that comes to mind that you want to see that you think could be better, let us know. We're all ears.
Awesome. And thank you to everyone who shared today, Ben, Ryan, and Josh, and Ray as well, of course, our aide there. And if you'd like to share on the next open mic, by all means, shoot any of us. Oh, it's cool. Josh bringing out the puns, Rocktober. I like it. I'm going to do it. Can we amend that? Let's get George. George will review our call later, and we can have him amend that.
Please
all
do.
right, guys. Yeah. I'll give you some time back in your day. I know it's not too much, but thank you for joining us all, and have a wonderful weekend.
Thanks, everyone. See you later.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Take care.
Bye, Rob.
Bye.
Cheers.
Bye.